Cool. Welcome all to another tools call. As a reminder, we do these every 2 months now. Just it felt like a more adequate cadence for the size of the agendas we have these days. In terms of Command Go, I have 3 small items here. One of them is about stamping of pseudo versions for local builds. I wanted to briefly mention it here that I think these versions get a dirty suffix if VCS modified is true. And I started to realize that VCS modified is maybe not ideally designed for Go builds. And the 2 cases that I run into, one of them is if a file is modified compared to what is committed, but doesn't affect the Go build, it does mark a build as modified or dirty, even though it doesn't affect the Go build. And on the opposite side, if I modify a Go file that does affect the build, but is Git ignored or VCS ignored, it doesn't mark the build as dirty. So at least as a Go developer, I find VCS modified to not be that helpful if those are the case. But I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that feels that way.
So I think it's imperfect. And it would be nice if it was more accurate. But I don't think there's an easy way to make it more accurate. I think it would require a lot of work for something that most people don't care about when they're doing the average build. But I think we should have something. If we're reporting the version of, in the build information, I think we should give people some signal. And, I think for like most cases, it's like a good signal. Like there are edge cases where it doesn't work, but I think it's helpful to have that information there. So I don't want to just drop it. So yeah, I guess I don't know. It's just complicated, I guess.
Is it not relatively easy for Command Go to figure out what files go into the build and use that as part of the heuristic?
We don't track all the files in the build in like a simple way right now, so we would have to start doing that.
Doesn't GoList do it? Because GoList tells you all the source files and all the embedded files, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but it doesn't collect it all in one easy to reference place. Like we would have to collect that all ourselves, and it would it seems, I don't know, it would be like it would be extra work. We would have to do extra work.
Fair enough. Should I up to you then if I should raise this as a separate issue, or if you're happy with me leaving the comment there and that's it.
Yeah, I think like unless we know of a way to like determine this information like without incurring extra cost for like normal builds, I think we should probably just leave it, but I could add a comment. But if you have a suggestion, I would like to make it more correct if it doesn't cost anything. So
my impression was that Command Go already had this information, but of course I don't know Command Go that well. But
I mean, the information's all there. We basic refactoring is what it's like.
Collect from all the tendencies.
Yeah.
I'll probably
Plumbing
just
this is expensive.
Sorry?
Yeah, plumbing this can be like a major change.
Yeah.
Okay. I might just strip the suffix for my own use case then. Go ahead.
Tim.
So my concern would actually be interactions with caching, because you have to make sure that it's like temporally makes sense. So you would have to store it on like your build artifacts. So it's not just like one execution of Command Go that you would have to necessarily be concerned about. So I mean, just there's a lot of plumbing is I guess my point.
Fair enough. The next 2 items are also mine, but they're much smaller. I've started using Go Toolchain a bit more, and I run into two small UX thingies that I wanted to bring up. One of them is that up until this point, at least in the projects I've seen, people used language versions in the Go line, in Go mod, like back in the day. But if you use, for example, Go 123 without the .0 or anything, and somebody's using an older Go version, that fails because it says it infers the toolchain version from that Go line, and Go 123 is not a Go version, it's a language version.
Would
So
you,
Already fixed.
you're suggesting that we do this in Command Go? Or are you saying as a matter of policy, people should be doing this?
I'm just wondering out loud, should projects start adding the .0 as a general rule? Because otherwise it starts
So-
failing.
Yeah, so what we've been doing, we've started tagging some of the X repos, and we've tagged them with .0, or not tag isn't the right word, adding, updating the Go version directives, and we've been updating to add 0.0 for the post 121 versions. I think it's really something we only need to do temporarily. But for now, while there are people using tool chains that don't have the fix in them, because we still support 122, like the older versions of 122, I think it would be a good practice for people to say go 1.23.0 or 1.22.0 or whatever in there.
In the long run, it should only be necessary if you need the patch version in that project.
Yeah, in the long run, it will, yes, it should only be necessary if you need the patch version, or if you want to support users who have a really old local toolchain on their system, and are like just depending on the upgrades for everything. But yeah, I think we want it to be okay for people to not put in the 0.0s.
Sorry, remind me again what the fix is that you're referring to it.
Okay, so when someone has a language version in their go.mod file, we will try to download that as
Right.
the
I didn't
toolchain
realize-
for an upgrade.
I didn't realize we fixed that.
We fixed it to download 0.0.
Got it.
And we backported it to 121 and 122. Or I should say Sam, because he did the work.
Yeah,
But yeah.
we all collectively did the work. Team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wasn't even aware I'd done that.
Yeah, so people who are running older versions of 121 and 122 don't have that.
So for a little while. it's not a
Yeah.
bad idea to put,
I think at least while we support 122, because we support those versions of Go, and yeah, so until everyone's running 123, I think we should be doing that.
sounds good.
I'm slightly confused now. There's like two edges to this.
At least,
I mean, yeah,
It's
this
very-
toolchain selection stuff has edges all over the place.
Because you've got very old toolchains that don't know how to parse the bug fix version, right? And then you've got people that are running toolchains that are new enough, that are newish, but don't match the minimum of the line. So they try to download a newer version. But if this newer version doesn't have a bug fix suffix, then it complains that, for example, Go 123 is not a valid Go version it can download.
The new versions do have the bug fix release.
Yeah, wait, you're saying someone who's running an old version of 121 or 122 as their local toolchain on their system?
So for example, if I'm running the latest Go 122, so it doesn't know how to parse tool chains and it doesn't know how to download them, right? But if it tries to build a project that says this instead of this,
The latest 122 has the fix, and the latest 121 has the fix.
Exported.
So it's only if you're running like
Old.
122.0, for instance, and you have not upgraded your 122, that's when you'll run into this issue.
So if I use the latest Go 122 release
Yeah.
and I try to build something that says Go 123 without the trailing 0, what should happen?
It should download 123.0.
Oh,
And
I
run.
see.
Thanks to Sam.
I'm gonna be honest here. We've all been finding there's quite a lot more cognitive load dealing with the
Yeah.
sort of tool chain stuff, and I'm hoping that this is just a sort of mostly a one-time transitional cost, and that eventually things will smooth out. But it has. We've all been confused at various points or another by the new higher dimensional space we work in.
Yes. Evidence for this is that there's 2 more bullet points related to Go toolchain on this agenda.
Yeah, I'm very confused. I'm sorry, but I'll
Okay,
try
wait,
again.
So if you
Excuse me,
have at
what?
least 121, you'll perform toolchain upgrades. But if you're between 121.0 and 121.6, it won't upgrade language versions to the .0 version. But if you're at 121.7 or 122.6, then you'll have the latest patch, which supports interpreting language versions as toolchain versions. And this is that number in the go.mod file, which used to mean nothing.
Okay, I'll try again later. I think that's going to make sense. The next bullet point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, it is. I was trying to illustrate the fact that it is
All being and confusing.
high dimensional configuration space.
The next bullet point is also mine. I think hopefully it's also not going to be confusing. We were moving a project to Go 123 recently, and I realized potentially I could swap actions setup Go with Go toolchain, because most CI systems have some version of Go that's relatively new, and setup Go, I don't know if any of you have used it, but it's not particularly great. So I was like, I can just use Go toolchain for that.
Yeah.
But one feature that setup Go has that Go toolchain doesn't is give me the latest bug fix version. And I wonder if that's something that could make sense to have. Because, for example,
Uh,
I think it needs proposal.
yeah, I'm nervous about it because I'm worried that it will add yet another variable to toolchain selection and add another vector for confusion. So I mean, we can talk about it, but I don't know. I just thought about this right now, so I haven't had a lot of time or
Proposal place. Actually,
Yeah,
I actually suggested this and then rejected internally multiple times. So if external users or like other tool community actually give a proposal, then so
fair enough.
Yeah.
I haven't thought
also-
too. Sorry, go ahead.
Dan, you just commented on one of the CLs I was doing to fix the playground, which has a very similar problem. And there's this internal tool we use called latest Go, which just returns the latest Go version of any Go version. And so, like, you can plug that into your toolchain directive.
Yeah, I think this is the angle I was coming in from, which is that setup Go and a bunch of other scripts effectively do the same, which is pull out the list of versions, figure out what is the latest, and so on. And Go Get, for example, has a similar feature. So maybe Go toolchain should have it too, but I don't feel strongly about it. I might file a proposal.
I guess like the place where I think it could be confusing is like I think right now there's like some amount of like determinism from your toolchain directive and your Go version in your go.mod file and so on that determines what version is going to get selected. But this kind of makes it a little variable, and I think I'm really nervous about that. And if we could not put it in the tool, but like kind of let users do it at their own risk, it sounds kind of better to me. But yeah, we should have a proposal. Tim.
So what do people usually interpret, this suffix to mean, like not having the trailing thing? Like if you were to do like Alpine, like Docker files, like would go like 1.23, that would correspond to the latest usually, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pseudo pointers or something. I forget the terminology.
Yeah, maybe we should just follow what other people kind of think this should mean.
Well, it's too late to do that because we've just
Okay,
declared that the language version is .0.
That's the same thing I was going to say, which is that I think Go has gone in the opposite direction, which I'm not saying is wrong.
Yeah,
But-
different opinion.
Yeah,
But I actually agree with Michael. I don't think we should allow .x or latest in Go mod, but it's something I want to use as like an environment variable, for example, in CI. That's the basic use case, replacing setup Go.
Presuming the CI is downloading the toolchain on every single build.
Well, we cache Go mod cache, so
Okay,
not really.
but that's outside the container then, is it?
The CI has its own caching that it can like restore and so on. So,
Okay, fine.
I mean, setup Go takes about 10 seconds to set up a version of Go from its quote unquote cache. So beating 10 seconds is easy.
Okay.
Okay, I'll maybe file a proposal. Anything else for Command Go? On to Go, please. I think Rob has one.
Yeah, I just wanted, continuing this theme, I wanted to point out that we just updated the Go directives of both Xtools and Go Please to 122.6. And this is a step towards where we want to eventually end up, which is that the Go directive inside the Go Please module is always the latest minor version of the latest major version of Go. So the very latest Go. The reason we didn't go there directly is that for now, we're just trying to unblock some work that Dimitri is doing to update the Go directive of all of our X repos to the N-1 Go version. Being on 122.6 also means we don't pick up a new default value of Go types alias, which I think Tim is about to talk about. We do have our tests passing with Go types alias equals 1, but maybe are not quite comfortable. Actually, I think we would be comfortable moving to 123.1, but that would mean it might be a little bit unstable. So the current plan is actually to wait until 123.1 is released, which is supposed to be today or tomorrow, and then update Go Please to that. So there's a little bit of uncertainty here about what we're going to do for CI. We've historically had legacy CI going back 4 versions. What we're doing now is we're keeping the 121 builders around because by virtue of toolchain upgrades, they will install Go Please and run Go Please tests with 123. And so it gives us a little coverage of what we expect will be a common use case where people actually have 121.x as their local version. By virtue of toolchain upgrades are able to install Go Please, but then Go Please will be integrating with the ambient Go command, which will be an older version of Go. So we want to maintain some tests for the integration.
And as the build is newer than the environmental toolchain on your path.
Yeah.
We're very excited that we'll start to get to use some of these new Go features we've been hearing so much about, but unable to use for the last 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, as outlined in that issue, there's a tremendous amount of upside for us. We get to use new Go features. We get to provide feedback on new Go features because we get to use them. We don't have to maintain a lot of build tag files. Yeah, it's just, we don't have to develop against multiple versions of the type checker or the parser, which means we can upstream fixes into the type checker and parser and benefit from them immediately. So really looking forward to this. The downside is that some people might have a slightly harder time installing Go Please, but we don't expect that to be a major problem.
Out of curiosity, has anybody complained about my Go version is too old yet?
I think there have been a couple people who have objected on philosophical grounds to the fact that we are requiring the latest version of Go to install Go Please, yet nominally the Go team supports the last two versions of Go. So I think there's some valid philosophical discussion to have. But, you know, our perspective on this is that the Go toolchain is really, from Go Please's perspective, the Go toolchain is really no different from any other dependency. And so we upgrade Go Fumped and we update static check, and should feel free to update the toolchain as well.
Cool. Anything else for Go Please? Sounds good. On to tools and Go libraries. Just a very quick mention of, I know you had been asking about early testing of the Alias stuff for months, and I was quiet, but I finally got around to it and it worked great. So thanks again. I did run into a test failure, but it was only related to, I was using Go packages and it was running Go. It was running Go in a mode where it wasn't actually using the new Alias stuff yet, even though the code that was calling Go packages was using it. And that confused the heck out of me for a solid hour. But I thought to myself, surely I'm the only one that ran into this, so I didn't find a bug.
Is it export
Yeah.
data? Is it the lack of
Yes.
aliases transiting through export data written by the compiler? I think
Yeah.
Tim fixed that this week.
Soon.
Yeah.
It's great that I add items to this list and then somebody's already fixed it in the last week and I didn't even notice.
Well, we are dealing with the same problems, so we're very aware.
By the way, I did just test while somebody else was talking that Go 122.6 does download the right toolchain with Go 123 as a directive. So that was fixed. I'm sorry. I must have been testing with an older version. The next item is from somebody else, I think.
Yeah, I added this. So it was just kind of a bit of a public service announcement to describe the alias situation that's about to happen. So we're going to have materialized type aliases. So basically, if you use Go types, there will now start to be this type that you'll see, which is called alias. That will do the alias tracking. So what is required for this is a Go debug setting for tracking Go types aliases to be turned on. So the reason we have this Go debug setting is for backwards compatibility, because it's a new type node, and we used to just basically remove the alias there. There was a declaration of the type, but it was an alias, and we would just remove the alias tracking from the types themselves. We're going to stop doing this, and we stopped doing this in 123. So 122 is still supported. So this means some interesting things need to happen. So if you're using 122, you kind of need, and you want to start seeing aliases, you need to basically go and set the Go debug setting. If you are in a main package. So it only applies to main package. If you are a package author that uses Go types and exports something that uses Go types, there's no real way to do this. You just have to tell your users they need to set the Go debug setting, or their main package needs to be in 123 or later.
Or you can support both.
So,
Write code that's portable across the transition, which is what
yeah, or you can write it so that it's portable. Now, what's about to start happening in 124 is that there's going to be parameterized type aliases. So, or we really hope to land parameterized type aliases, I should say. Now, those require having materialized type aliases. And if you have that Go debug setting off, you will not see the materialized type aliases, and Go types will not be able to, will stop and say, here's an error, you need to upgrade your toolchain version. And so, yeah, there's going to be this kind of unfortunate situation during the transition from 122 to 124, where you have to go and say, I need this Go debug setting on basically everywhere you have a main package. So,
Or build one Go 123. If you build the Go 123, it'll just work.
yes, the easy answer is you use a Go mod file with 123 or 124 if you want to do 124 code. That's the really easy answer. So, Dan, you were saying something about this being confusing? Yeah, so. I kind of do expect that. So for example, what we will do in Xtools repos, I will be doing pretty soon is after we have 122 updated to all of them, I will go around and like mark that you need to, I will set the Go debugs to turn type aliases on kind of in each one of those main packages is what I will be doing. So users of Xtools Go packages also probably should be doing this in their binaries too, if their go.mod is 122. If it is not, if it is 123 or later, this will just be a no out for them.
In the future, if we ever encounter this type of scenario again, we will have access to the Go debug directive in the go.mod file. But unfortunately, we do not have access to that because it was added in 123.
Mm-hmm.
This is complicated. I think that on the other hand, the Go/whatever packages like AST and types, they inevitably have to change when the spec changes, and they're the only packages in the standard library where that's the case. And so they are inherently more fragile, and it's always a pain for things like parameterized aliases, for example, is always going to be a pain. And what we've done is try to make it as smooth as possible a transition, so that the maintainers always have a way to kind of get the state they need, even though there are more flags involved. So it's frustrating, and not least for us, but it should at least allow the transition to proceed smoothly. And
I wonder if this would be helped at all by the go/ ... packages being versioned separately from the compiler and runtime. Because you could have a tool built with Go 122, but that pulls in the latest Go libraries.
So, as a matter of fact, the Go types package is strongly coupled with the compiler because the code is actually the two are mechanically generated from the same source, and that's because a type checker is a lot of code, and we don't want to maintain two completely separate ones. And so most of the type checkers are shared between the compiler and Go types. So they're very strongly coupled today.
I think more generally, like I remember before around Go 117. Before 117, there was not even a notion of a language version. And then we introduced a language version. And then in Go 121, we introduced a toolchain version. And what we're encountering now is a combinatorial explosion as a result of these two additional dimensions. Not to mention Go debug settings, which
Profile versioning.
And then profile versioning, which is yet another source of confusion. I think the solution to this is to collapse these dimensions as much as possible. And I think that I hope that what we do in GoPlease with our go.mod file is a template for other tools to follow, which is that you just use the latest version.
The other thing I think is a lot of this one-time cost of switching to a versioned world, and now that the mechanism exists to do profile versioning, I don't expect that the next time we need it will be as difficult.
Sure.
Well, we're still on this topic. I think I'm happy with the result of this toolchain stuff for version selection in terms of like the .0 and stuff like that. The only minor quirk I think that is left with this setup is that if I have a project that says Go 123 and somebody's an older version, I think ideally what you would want is for them to download the latest bug fix toolchain for that version, so 123.2 or whatever it is, because that would have the latest bug fixes. But right now we always download the first, the .0. And realistically, more often than not, that has bugs that we know about and have been fixed.
Yeah.
And I know that's a choice we've made, and I'm not saying it's terrible per se, but it's also kind of weird from the UX perspective.
It's your second point on the original list, isn't it? I see the problem.
I think, so I'm looking at this from the perspective of trying to treat the Go toolchain just like any other dependency to the extent we can. Obviously, we can't do it all the time, right? And the same thing happens with any other dependency you have, like bug fixes are introduced, but in the name of like stability and keeping MVS like simple and all of that, we like fix the versions that you get. We can't totally do that for tool chains, but we try to like do that to the extent possible, and we put the requirement on the distributor of the module to bump the versions up to fix bugs in their dependencies. That's kind of like how the model is, and we didn't want because in some sense it gives you like a false sense of security if you have Go 123 update to the latest version, because it will only update if it's doing a toolchain upgrade. It won't do it for other people. We don't update if the version's not higher. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I actually mostly agree with you, and it also makes caching a pain if you have to do a GET request to figure out what even is that version. I guess I'm just thinking about it from the point of view of the maintainer. Like, should I be updating my toolchain or Go line with every bug fix release to make sure everybody is in the latest security fixes and so on? I'm starting to think yes, even though it's going to be noisy. But I don't know what the general policy should be. I'm just trying to think out loud.
Yeah.
But I will end it here. Apologies for the extended back chat. I believe Alan has the last item.
I'm just going to mention that I know I said it probably many months ago, maybe even many quarters ago, but I'm actually now finally going to start the work on putting comments in the AST so it can be 124. No, really, I'm going to. So just for those who didn't catch it the first time, because it was a long time ago, the Go AST package, which stores the syntax tree, represents the syntax tree, has always had this problem that comments are represented in a side table. And so when you move subtrees around, the comments get lost or appear in the wrong place. And so what we'd like to do is find a way to put the comments in the tree, just like the rest of just like the rest of the tree, so that it moves with it and is printed in the same way. And the challenge is really to do it space efficiently. But I think I have a plan for how to do that.
When you're done, does that mean that I can reorder imports and the comments will do the correct thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
That might
Correct.
make-
So, to be clear, it's correct. So there's not always an obvious correct answer in every case. For example, if you have like an expression like x plus y, and there are comments in all the places you can imagine, before the x, after the x, after the plus, after the y. But let's say you pull off one of the subtrees and replace it with replace y with z. There's a question of, well, obviously the last comment belongs with y, but the one that is between the plus and the y, is that sort of associated with the plus or associated with the y? Should it move or should it stay? And in that case, it's not really a good sort of philosophical answer about which one it should be. As a matter of fact, it will move with the y, it doesn't stay with the plus. But in a different situation, it might stay with the operator instead of moving with the subtree. And it's hard to explain those cases, but I don't think those cases come up very often as important in real programming. Like when you put comments between tokens, you don't really expect to sort of be associated strongly with the left or the right sort of thing. The most important thing is that they do one of those two things. They don't just vanish and disappear or end up somewhere else.
Sounds good. I have a significant amount of horrible code in GoFont to try to make comments not do silly things. So once your stuff is ready, please let me know and I'll give it a try.
Thanks.
Then you can set your Go.mod to 124.0 when it's released. And immediately delete all that old code. Except that we call you as a library, so. Fortunately, you can't.
Well, I could, but then I'm forcing you to also bump, right?
Yes,
already.
but well, I guess we will bump, but presumably we're not the only ones who call GoFund as a library.
Any other last minute items in the agenda or anything else? Okay, inline comments don't exist. Nobody uses them. Okay, so in terms of the next session, because we're doing roughly every 2 months, and 13th of November is GoLab. So I was thinking the 6th of November, unless anybody says that it's like a holiday or something like that.
Holiday. Works for us.
For us.
Cool,
Is anyone going to be at GoLab other than me?
I'll be there.
Awesome.
Florence. Avoiding the summer busy season. What a perfect time.
I'll be there from Saturday to Thursday, most likely. So quite a few days.
Right.
Cool.
I'll see you there.
So see you all in 2 months or at GoLab.
Thanks.
Thanks.